So if an idea gets killed, does it kind of go in a like, hey, we might revisit this another place, or we might push this over to a different business unit, or is it just gone?
No, it's never just gone. And you can ask our teams. We revisit ideas that we've killed time and time again. So, as an example, we within our ESKD space, there's a portion of a treatment population for our patients, which is peritoneal dialysis. We don't play in that space today. We have reassessed that probably every 2 years for as long as I've been with the company. And so every time that someone is like, again, right? But it's good because market times change or reimbursement structures change or technology changes. So once an idea is dead, it's never really dead, right? It's just put aside and wrapped with a pretty bow saying not right now.
I love that. And I also love the idea that like you view something, let's say every 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, because, as time changes, the perspective and the ability of a business to do something with something can change so much. But have you ever had something that you like, you went back to and then you were like, okay, now's the time?
Hmm. It's a good question. Actually, yes. And this one I can communicate. Well, I know there's probably multiple, but this is an immediate example. And I can communicate it because it's commercially known. We have a product under development right now it's called a TIPS stent graft device. So transhepatic intrajugular portosystemic shunt is what that stands for. It's specifically for patients who are in liver failure, or liver cirrhosis, moving towards liver failure. We assessed going into this market for the last, same thing, as long as I've been with the company, over 15 years. And at the time when we assessed it previously, because we had the tech, we had the knowledge and the skill set to do it. But the market at the time for us, looking at the US market, it was not big enough to justify the cost to do this study. However, over time, what's happened since is we've significantly grown our sales structure and footprint in China, especially when I was with the legacy Bard business and when we were acquired by BD. BD had a very large infrastructure and sales support in China. And that China market is where all the potential was. And so multiple years ago, we said, you know what, now's the time, we can do it. The return on investment makes sense because our market reach is not just US and EU, it's now global. And the propensity of this disease is heavily driven in China. So that is one good example. We're in a clinical trial right now. We just enrolled our 10th patient like a week ago. Very exciting.
I love that. Like, that idea that like an idea can be so cool, but this is just not the time for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point could be that like, this is it, finally.
Mm-hmm.
The way that I would refer to it, and Mike's going to laugh at that. Mike who's just off camera, is like, sometimes when you're playing in a band, you've just got a riff and you can't make that riff work in a song. You're like, this is so good, but I can't jam it in anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day, like years later, you're like, this is the time for this riff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. I can see that.
So going to the idea stage though, like you get these ideas going, you're starting to ask these tough questions.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine sometimes people get attached to ideas and they don't want to let them go.
Oh yeah. Very much so. Even us as leadership, right? Like we all have our pet favorite projects or things that we're really passionate about and we don't want to walk away from. I'd say actually saying no to like things is the hardest thing to do, but the most important thing to do. And being able to realize that it's not personal or it's not, it's that now's just not the time. But 100%, it is very tough to say no and to walk away from something, especially like as an engineer, when you're like, I got the solution and the commercial team saying, but we're never going to be able to sell that, right? That's real tough. Or a commercial team's like, why can't we do this? We're like, guys, like that's unobtainium, like impossible. It doesn't exist. We can't get there yet, right? So yeah, for sure. It can be difficult.